Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Managing Emotions and Your Career in a Time of Crisis, presented by Meetings Today. My name is Tyler Davidson, and I'm Vice President and Chief Content Director with Meetings Today, and I'm excited to welcome you to this webinar. Today's webinar is worth 1 hour of credit through the Events Industry Council for the CMP, and you can find a copy of the certificate on our F&B, our webinar club page. And we encourage you to ask questions during the presentation. You may submit questions at any time by typing your question in the designated Q&A area and then by hitting send. And should you experience any technical difficulties, please send a message in the Q&A or chat area or call 800-553-8878. And now I would like to introduce today's speaker. Really an interesting topic. I'm really looking forward to this. Don Finn is an attorney and risk management pro, and over the years he has been brought into many chaotic and messy scenarios to provide guidance and creative solutions. He is an executive coach and strategic advisor and speaks about the impact of stories on leadership and sales success. Don has presented, trained, and advised over 6,000 CEOs over the last 20 years. And with that, I would like to extend a warm welcome to today's speaker. Thanks for joining us, Don.
Thank you very much. So we're going to swap over, and now I get the stage, as they say. Tyler, thanks for inviting me today. And welcome to all of you. I was excited about the opportunity to do this workshop because you folks are part of my tribe. I'm a professional speaker, and I rely on a lot of meeting planners, and of course, my calendar just got wiped out, just like a lot of your work just got wiped out. So we're sort of in the same boat collectively, and I figure any way I can help, this is an opportunity for me to do that. So what I'm going to share with you today, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of these webinars for the CEOs that I speak with, gotten a lot of great feedback on it, and I know it's going to be very beneficial to you as well. So we went over my background, but I think what's helpful to understand about it is I moved away from litigation. So I litigated cases. At the end of my career, I was doing nuclear power plant whistleblower cases. So I was like a John Grisham novel. And then I ended up building an HR company and becoming an entrepreneur, learning how to manage people and do sales and marketing. And I sold that company. And now I've been focusing even more on the coaching and the speaking. All right. So I have, because of my legal background, been brought into a lot of chaotic situations and helped it to kind of level down, because you don't want to make things worse, So I'm going to help you make sure you don't make things worse today. How's that? All right. Now, I like to keep things simple because then we can actually do things with them. And I like frameworks. So the framework that I've been helping with people with over the years is this 3-ring circle of how we deal with stuff. And the first ring is our responsibility. So if we think about how we deal with going through the coronavirus and how we deal with our career and how we deal with the people we may manage or the clients that we're trying to service still, the logical question we ask ourselves is, what do I need to do to be responsible? And if you do that, that takes care of all the logic, because what you don't want out of any of this is to look back on it with guilt, regret, or remorse. And if you're less than responsible to yourself or around you, then that has a chance to enter into your life, and you don't want to do that. So one simple question you ask yourself is, how do I handle this responsibly? Am I doing everything I need to do to be responsible? And focus your energy in that direction, and don't do what I call play a below the line game, where we look for somebody to blame or somehow to justify our conduct that's less than responsible, okay? So that's just the logical conversation. I wanted to get that out of the way today, because that's not what we're really focusing on today. The second word here is grace. And if you talk about emotional intelligence, if you talk about the story work that I do, if you talk about drama, all these different things that come from the right side of the brain, the more emotional side of the brain, I think that the overarching goal for us as individuals and as organizations is to go through this gracefully. I can't think of a word that's in a sense higher than that. I can't think of a word that's higher than responsibility. So from the emotional side, whether you use grace or your own word, how do you show up well in all of this? All right, because that's what we're really going to focus on today. And the third circle is that of creativity and the way out of being stuck. So when everything got canceled, one after one after one after another, and it keeps happening because we don't know when this is going to come back together, you can get panicked, you can feel stuck, you can feel immobilized. And the only way out of that is with creativity. That's the only way to get out of that. And so we can talk about that. I'll show you some resources another time. But what I talk about today, when we talk about grace, if we show up the way I'm talking about today, it'll open the door to our creativity. It's very hard to show up with creativity out of fear, okay? It's very hard to show up with creativity out of trying to control the situation. So by being graceful, we can open the door to our own creativity. Because we're going to need a bunch of it right about now. Now, if there's one line that is just so helpful for all of us right now, it is this line. If it doesn't make sense, don't try to make sense out of it. You know, many of us, me included, we run pretty hard. I call it running 75 miles an hour. And when you're running 75 miles an hour, you cannot feel yourself emotionally. You're running right by that. You know, there's this continuum between our beingness on one side, and if you're all the way on that side, that's known as depression. On the other side, it's our doingness, and if you're all the way on that side, you're disconnected from yourself emotionally. So many times when we're running 75 miles an hour, we're disconnected emotionally. We can't even feel ourselves. We're running right past feeling ourselves. Well, many of us can't run anywhere right now. Many of us are feeling pretty damn useful right now, unuseful right now, right? So all of a sudden, our emotions are surfacing. They have been since March. So you'll notice that you may be more reactive or more sensitive. I watched this Ron Howard movie on Pavarotti, and I'm like, oh, you know, like I'm not the guy that normally does that, right? So all of a sudden, this other side of us is on full display. And it's not just with you, it's everybody around you. It's with my teenager, it's with my wife, it's my oldest sons. Everybody around us is dealing with that. And if there was ever a time for us to be empathetic to ourselves or other people, now is that time, all right? Unfortunately, you see the craziness that we were talking about, Tyler and I were talking about earlier, where we're doing anything but being empathetic to each other. We're calling division, which is just nuts, right? So when we start about this grace thing and you kind of go upstream, it all starts with stories. So the stories that we're enveloped in as kids, Don Miguel Ruiz, one of my favorite books, The Four Agreements, talks about how we're domesticated into these stories. I say that they were gifted to us from our parents, from our environment, from the movies, from the education. These aren't stories of our own making, okay? The stories that we're kind of domesticated in, and they drive our self-talk, they drive our belief systems around our career, about our money, about our relationships. And one of the things I challenge people to do is to take those stories from where they're secret and silent and hidden, kind of like ghosty, and bring them out in front of you and expose them to some light and say, does this story make sense for me? Is this story producing the results I'm after? I had a very bad story about money that was gifted to me. And until I figured out how ridiculous that story was, I didn't get to keep any of the money, okay? So understanding what our stories are right now, what is our story about how we get through coronavirus? What's our story about what our future is going to be? Don't leave those things back here. Put them in front of you so you can actually examine them and say, maybe I need a different story if I'm going to be successful moving forward. Now, as good old Will Shakespeare said, and as you like it, all the world is a stage. All the men and women are merely players. We have our entrances and our exits. In our lifetime, we play many different parts. So what he is letting us know is that we are always on an emotional stage. We are never not on an emotional stage, right? Now, of course, we really realize that. It's like constantly, it's almost like walking on emotional pins and needles, right? And on that emotional stage, there's only three roles that have been going on since the beginning of time: the victim, the villain, and the hero. And we're all familiar with all those roles. They were gifted to us as little kids, right? And there's not a single one of us right now that doesn't have a victim mask on. Because a lot of us are true victims. You know, there's this distinction between being a victim and having a victim mentality. And I think everybody gets that. You get hit by a Mack truck, you're a victim. How you deal with it is the mentality. So all of us have been hit by a Mack truck. All of us have been victimized for real at some level right now. It's not just all make-believe. And we certainly can feel that. We can feel like a victim. So one thing I encourage you to acknowledge is your own victimology. And so that you can actually step back from it and not be so enveloped in it. You can say, okay, I've been victimized. I've been, somebody's had a stroke. I've been stroked. All right. So this is what happens to you. It's not who you have to be. All right. So we can acknowledge our victimology, not deny it. So then we can actually move out of it, which is what I want to help us all do today. Now, ever since you were little kids, you know, what role did you want to play? Most of us put these kind of outfits on. Now, last Halloween, my granddaughter, she was 6 at the time, it's all the girls in their princess outfits and the Wonder Woman outfits and the boys. And there's my granddaughter in a Darth Vader outfit. Now I'm like, okay, I'm a little worried about you. You know, this is not how the story's supposed to go. It made me laugh so hard. All the other mothers were like a little nervous about it, you know. But for most of us, we're trying to play this hero role, you know, unless we're psychologically disturbed somehow, right? And therein lies some of the challenge. This is the role we want to play, and we're trying to get out of our victimology. Now, one of the things that really woke me up about the hero role. So as a trial lawyer, I was working 70 hours a week, killed my first marriage. You know, I thought that I was supposed to be this champion. I could use all my energy and my smarts. I came out of a poor environment in the Bronx. I was going to be the hero. And part of the story was, hey, you work hard, you self-sacrifice, and that's how the hero role goes, right? And what I wasn't conscious enough of how I was asking my family to sacrifice along with me. So all of a sudden, a lot of us right now don't have even the ability to sacrifice. And here I go reading this book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, that talks about our hero nature throughout time. And the mythology of the hero is always that of self-sacrifice. So because I work harder than anybody else, I put more time in here than anybody else, and I put more energy into this than anybody else, that will somehow make me a hero. And my question is, how is that working for you? Hopefully it works for you better than it worked for me. But in my experience of having coached so many executives, it's just a road to burnout, resentment, all those types of things. And I read the book, and at the end, Joseph Campbell, was just wisdom beyond years, that guy. He said that today's hero can put down the sword. Today's hero can put down the idea of self-sacrifice. That is just mythology. And what he said today's hero's role is so poetic. I absolutely love it. And it's actually what I try to do in my life. He said, the role of today's hero is to bring light to the bifurcated soul. You don't think we have a whole bunch of bifurcated soul going on right now? Just a ton of it. You're dealing with it. I'm trying to bring light to your bifurcated soul right now. All right. I look for people to help me with my light, you know, so we can get through all of this. So what I realized about the hero, a couple of things. Number one, this whole nonsense about self-sacrifice. You know, people are going to come back to this after this, maybe what's the new, realizing that, you know, my running 75 miles an hour the way I used to is crazy. I'm not going to do that moving forward. I'm not going to do that anymore. All right. So that's one thing we might realize out of this. Other people might be like, I can't wait to do that again. It's been so long, man. I need to go. You know, it's kind of funny. And prep for this, I went through a couple old Meetings Today magazines, and you look at the ones from last year and how high and mighty everybody's just banging it. It was all happening. Now you look at the one a year later, like, oh wow, what a complete reversal of things. The second thing here is one of the traps of the hero is that we tend to overcommit. And when you overcommit, you produce a lie. So the ability to say no because is so important. And the last thing here, the idea of being a hero is I have to triumph over some Mount Everest. You know, this coronavirus is going to be my personal Mount Everest. I will scale the sucker and redeem myself in the process. That's a story, isn't it? That's a story. Nobody told you that's what's has to happen. That's what you tell yourself has to happen, right? It's just a story. So what if it didn't have to be hard? What if you just have to do things and you don't have to put the language on top of doing things that it's going to be hard? I'm going to have to get through this coronavirus by doing things. Do I have to add the pressure on top of myself, the self-created story that this is going to be hard? What if your story is, I got this. I've been through stuff before. I'm smart. I can pivot. I can be creative. I got this. I'm going to do this gracefully. You know, this is going to be fun. This is exciting. This is an opportunity for me to grow. So don't put the languaging on top of things that's unnecessary, that it has to be hard, because that just causes unnecessary stress for no good reason. Right? Do you really need that languaging to motivate yourself right now? Let's hope not. Okay. So here's what I'm going to share with you now is something very unique that I've taught people over the years. And it's a languaging I use is our emotional energy. So we're all very familiar with emotional intelligence, right? The idea is that we now have these frontal lobes, and our frontal lobes can govern our mammalian and our reptilian brains because we're so smart now, okay? Well, how's that working with you, with your conversation with the teenager in the hallway? How's that frontal lobe logic working in that conversation? How's that frontal lobe logic working when you're feeling victimized right now? See, the challenge is we can't just think through our problems. We have to feel our way through them as well. And the languaging I use around, if you're not going to call it emotional intelligence, the languaging I use around that other side of the brain, I call it emotional energy because that's what it really is, right? So I can get to the physics of that, but I won't right now, okay? Now, to set up how we use our emotional energy and help you understand this, when I ask people, when you're on a stage by yourself, you're on the emotional stage by yourself, you own 100% of it. When you're on the emotional stage with one of your clients that may be having a challenge right now, how much, if you want to be a fair and good person, do you want to take up on a stage? Then everybody tells me 50-50. You get half the cookie, I get half the cookie. That has been our notion of fairness forever, which begs the question, when have you ever been 50-50 on a stage in your entire life? Okay. I had a criminal law professor who was kind of a riot. I mean, I guess you have to be if you're teaching criminal law. And one day he was telling us where relatives get murdered. And he said that women get murdered in the kitchen. Men get murdered in the kitchen. Women get murdered in the bedroom, and family members get murdered in the living room. You got to know where not to mess. I don't have the stronger energy in the kitchen. Can we please take this conversation someplace else, okay? So depending, when you're the expert and you're talking about your meeting planning expertise or your banquet expertise, when you're talking about your expertise in a conversation, you always have the stronger energy. Now you start talking about their money, all of a sudden, and they have the stronger energy. So depending on what stage we're on, we either have the weaker or the stronger energy. And to language around that, we say that people who have a weak energy are 20%ers. Now it could be 0.01, or people have a strong energy at 80%, it could be 99.9, but this is just languaging around something because it's kind of the way physics works. And I did a deep dive for 3 years to understand physics better, so I wasn't talking nonsense, what I'm sharing with you today. This is all physics-based. So when we have a weak energy, there's only one of these Greek masks that we put on, and that's that of the victim. Nobody plays victim with strong energy. When people are crashing through windows rioting and saying that I'm a victim. Not in that moment. In that moment, you don't care about the shopkeeper, you don't care about anybody else. You're a villain. I don't care what your justification is. That's villainous activity, all right? So you can say, yeah, I'm a villain because you did this to me. If you want to make that argument, fine, but don't tell me you're some kind of victim in that moment, all right? Nobody plays victim with strong energy, all right? Somebody can language it all day long, but if they're doing it with strong energy, as you'll see, that strong energy is uncaring, and nobody, that's what villains do. They don't care about other people. It's just the mask they have on, the villain mask in that moment. Okay? Now, when somebody has a strong energy, which mask do they have on? And if you go to them, whoa, 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 that's pretty strong, what they'll do is back off if they're a hero, because the last thing a hero wants to do is to hurt anybody. So the easiest way to manipulate a hero is to tell somebody you're hurting me. Like little kids are like wolves in sheep clothing, they're good at manipulating you. Just tell them you're hurting me. Right? You have to watch going for that bait. Now, if somebody in that moment's got the villain mask on, they don't care about you because they somehow think you don't care about them, then you say, whoa, that's too strong. They'll justify coming forward, okay? So when that happens, you walk off stage. You don't go like this. It's too easy to go like this right now. When somebody's that upset about something, and people are going to be really upset now in general, just walk away from them, all right? Don't engage. Don't try to make yourself right. Don't try to make them wrong. Just walk away. When you calm down, we can have a conversation. Now, I like to go through this physical exercise when I do workshops to help people get what I'm talking about. But since we can't do that, I went on Amazon and I started looking for good human being puppets to demonstrate the exercise, but I couldn't find any. So I got my two friends here, Elmo and Cookie Monster, to demonstrate it, all right? So I have half the room stand on a 20-yard line and the other half of the room, and I've done this in meetings with hundreds of people in a megaphone, it's hilarious, and other people on another 20-yard line. And this is how two 20%ers or two victims relate to each other. And I ask people, how do you language around this? And they all say pretty much the same thing, either distant or disconnected. So this is how so many of us feel today right now. And is anything going to get done like this? No. But 20%ers eventually do connect through their mutual pity party about the 80% out there someplace. So you look through the media, all the 20% of us, first we connected about China did this to us. Then we connected about the kids on the beach in Clearwater. And then we connected about the president. Then we connected about his opponents. And then we connected about something else. We've got to connect. The two employees connect about the boss. The two kids connect about the parent, all right? So you don't want to build connections through your mutual pity parties. Politicians love that, but you don't want to play that game, all right? So I then say, okay, let's pretend you guys over here are a bunch of 80%ers and you don't have an interest in playing some pity party game. So let's go. You got a lot of energy, 80%ers. Now you poor 20%ers over here, you see these people with their strong energy and it's very attractive. Weak energy is attracted to strong energy as a matter of physics. There's a reason why good girls like bad boys, and it has nothing to do with logic. It's the energy they're attracted to, right, ladies? Okay. So I have these people who go, help. Now the 80% over here, the hero says, I see these poor people help. They ask for help, but what are you going to do? You're going to want to save them. They start leaning like this. In psychology, it's known as the savior complex. The juice in saving other people is you get to relive having saved yourself. So they say, all right, I want you to take this 80% energy of yours and bring it toe to toe, right to their toes, and say, I'm here to save you. And so everybody runs up right toe to toe, standing to everybody's cracking up because it's so uncomfortable. They're laughing. And I said, now, you 20%ers, you ask these people to help you out, but they came in this kind of energy. What was your response? They're like, whoa, flight, or please fight, get out of my face, or freeze, right? And yet, the intention of the 80% was good, but the result wasn't. This 80-20 dynamic is the nature of codependency. If you're an 80% boss, who will you surround yourself with sooner or later? Number 20% is you wonder why you're exhausted. Right? I'll never forget my 80% nature. I would take my sons camping all the time. And, you know, when young kids try to chip in and do stuff, they kind of slow you down, jack it up. I'm like, go play. I'll take care. I'll put up the tent, right? So a couple of years ago, I've got a whole bunch of 16-year-old boys, my sons, and they're watching me put up the tent. And I'm like, aren't you going to help? Hey, Dad, every time you asked, we tried to help. You told us just go. That's what you get if you're the 80% of control freak. So trying to control your way through this, you're going to be very lonely, all right, if you're trying to control your way through this. So I say, okay, we said 80-20 doesn't work. Well, you said 50-50 works, so let's go kind of walk up to the 50-yard line and stay toe-to-toe again. And I ask people, does this feel better yet? They're like, no. No, the reality is every relationship needs space to survive. And I kid around, if my wife and I are planning our vacation from 50-50, where are we going to go? No place, right? My agenda against her agenda, arguing over agendas. So I said to everybody, all right, step back to what feels right. And everybody goes like this, arm's length, right? You've heard of an arm's length transaction. This is known as playing 40-40. This is the sweet spot. This is how we'll get through this gracefully, by being a 40%er. I'm going to teach you how to get there in a bit. But this room in the middle, we talk about creativity. This room in the middle is for creativity. How can you be creative at 80-20? How can you be creative at 20-20? 80-80, how can you be creative like that? The only place where you can be creative with two people is at 40-40. This is the only place that allows dialogue to happen. It leaves room for the dance, as I like to say. So 20-20, too distant. 80-20, people feel like they just got steamrolled, and it makes no difference how much you care, which is why I call this position becoming a negative hero. Your intentions are good, your outcomes are not. Didn't your parents do that to you when you were a kid? Let's hope we try not to do that to our kids, right? Or to the people around us, or to ourselves, because nobody plays 80 on us more than we do. Nobody beats us up more than we do. And you have my permission to cut that nonsense out. Okay, we're all good people. We'll figure this out. You don't have to make yourself a bad person in the process. Now, 50-50 too close to comfort, 40-40 the sweet spot. This is the most spiritual spot. This is when you're laughing from your heart with a loved one, with a client after a great meeting, and you just are. There's no fear on either side. 20 and 80 are fear-based. There's no fear. You just are. You're laughing from your heart. What could be more spiritual than laughing from your heart with somebody that you care about or you love? Nothing, okay? So now, people say to me, it seems a little like it's a weak energy, Don. It's only a 40% energy. It's not even 50%. But I have to remind you again, this is about how we relate to things, including how we relate to ourselves in our own conversations. I don't think anybody would consider the Dalai Lama to be a weak person. This guy's dealing with China in exile, running a country. But you always see the guy show up gracefully. He's got that deep inner smile that many of the Buddhists have. And under fire, he is graceful. So the 40% position is about our beingness to the outside world, where we take up our space, we let them have their space, and then we co-create in the middle. I'll give you another opposite example. And one of the challenges, I don't know if you can hear this right now, Tyler, but they decided to do some work down the block there with everything silenced off. I hope you guys don't hear it and the speaker just picks up me. But anyway, that's the beauty of our modern age.
We're good, Don. Thanks for checking in. I thought I would interject, though. If anyone has any questions, put them in the chat area or in the Q&A area. So
yeah, I can't wait to answer a question.
Yeah. Carry on, Don.
Carry on, baby. All right, so an opposite extreme example. I live in Coronado. Maybe some of you have done some meetings here, okay? And there's a SEAL base right next to it. And because my son played Little League Baseball, I got, and some of the SEALs' dads, their sons play Little League, we got to know each other. And dads talk about what they do. And they love this metaphor 40-40 because they do the SEALs training right down here, known as BUDS, training right here. I can hear the gunfire at night sometimes, and I see the explosions. And they said this is exactly what they train their SEALs to do is to play 40-40 with each other under gunfire. You think about it. If one of those soldiers out of fear goes 20%, they put the whole team at risk. One of those soldiers out of fear or trying to play some superhero role goes 80%, they put the whole team at risk. These guys, they put them under pressure to crack out of this 40-40 situation under fire. And if they crack, they're out. Talk about a 40 grace under fire. That's what these guys are trained to do. Be graceful under fire. The 40% position is a very powerful position. Now, in my deep dive into physics, I came across tuning forks, which to me exemplify what 40-40 is. 40-40 is a resonance, all right? It's how we resonate. You have a vibrating object known as another person, a vibrating object known as you, and at 40-40 you can produce resonance, all right? This is my son's old tuning fork for his guitar. Da, 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 da. He doesn't use it anymore because he's got an electronic tuner, right? It's not a very loud tuning fork. So they don't use tuning forks for tuning instruments anymore. Some of you may know what they use it for. This is a modern tuning fork. This tuning fork is used for healing. So this resonance, this 40-40 resonance is a healing resonance. It brings homeostasis into a gland or organ. So yeah, maybe they'll get it that way. That's a healing energy. And if you notice, the top of all the tuning forks have that same distance. They would not work at 20-20. They would not work at 80-80, be bending metal. No resonance at 50-50. The only place resonance works is at 40-40. So how do we get to this sweet spot? All right. On our journey right now from 20 to 40, there's 3 words: coax, encourage, and inspire. And they are just the most powerful words. So I like to keep it simple. Remember earlier on I said responsibility, grace, and creativity. Now within that, as a subset to that, when we're moving out of our victimology and we're trying to become graceful, the 3 words are coax, encourage, and inspire. And when you think of the term coax, it's equivalent to a pat on a baby's butt. That's how we most naturally learn, all right? One safe step at a time. So when I'm coaxing myself or I'm coaxing somebody else, when you're dealing with all of what's going on right now, you're not going to leap from 20 to 40 with any of it. You're going to go through this one safe step at a time. So what I ask myself, it's a very practiced sentence, or I will ask somebody else to say, let's try this as a first safe step and see how it feels. Now, I can't think of a safer sentence than that. I've got so much embedded in it. Let's try. It's an experiment. First safe step. And I don't say, let's see if it works. I say, let's see how it feels, because I've got to give the emotional out that if it doesn't feel good, they don't have to do it. And almost nobody, including me, when speaking to myself, says no to that. So my little mantra, okay, what's my next safe step? What's my next safe step? What's my next safe step? I can begin with an end in mind, as Covey would say, as I'll talk about in a minute, but I'm only going to get there one safe step at a time. So as you're going through this right now, to mitigate against some sense of overwhelm, just ask yourself, what's my next safe step? Okay? And you might also ask, what's my next safe responsible step? What's my next safe graceful step? What's my next safe creative step? Back up again. The second word here is encourage. And I certainly knew the dictionary definition of encourage, like you, is to put courage into people, coming from the Latin. But I met a sales guy named Gary who really taught me what it means to be an encourager, right? So Gary out earn. It's like maybe one of your community meeting planning community out earns all the other meeting planners 4-1. They all have the same opportunities, the same sales technique. All this stuff is the same. He sold insurance. Everybody at his firm sold the same product, had the same marketing, same underwriting, same everything. And yet he out earned 4-1. And you have people doing that in your industry, out earning everybody else 4-1. And you're like, what technique, man? What are they doing that I'm not doing? You know, what's the magic juice? And so I was asking this of Gary, and he's like, I don't know. We've done all the same training. We have the same products. I go, yeah, but you're doing something different. Let's try to figure out what that is. So I got him and his sales team around a conference table, four people, Gary and I at the heads of the table. And one of the first questions I asked the team, which I'll ask you, is what is the most important thing you do every day? What's the most important thing you do every day? Now, when asking the other brokers, saving Gary for last, when asking the other brokers, they all gave me a very good logical response. Make the plan, work the plan, understand the prospect's needs, and try to satisfy their needs. Good, intelligent stuff. And if you execute on that, you'll have six-figure success like all those brokers did. But they didn't have Gary's success. And of course, Gary does that stuff. But then when I got to Gary, I said, what's the most important thing that you do every day? And his answer blew me away. It was so different in kind. I was like, unexpected, not just for me, but for the whole room. And Gary, what's the most important thing you do every day? He goes, that's easy. I make people feel good about themselves. What? I'd never heard that before. Have you ever heard that before? That your most important thing you do is make people feel good about themselves? But don't you get that right away? I got it right away. Isn't it true that anybody, the rare few people in your life that have made you feel good about yourself, you will do anything for? You might be able to count them on one or two hands. Please, how else can I help? People buy stuff from Gary just so they can be around Gary. Are you the meeting planner? Are you the catering director? Or are you the person that's making your prospects, your clients, feel good about themselves? Because if you are, they will do anything for you. I said, okay, Gary, I got that. Whew. Nobody taught me that before that. What, do you got to be 45 until you learn this stuff? I said, okay, what's your secret to making people feel good about themselves? He looks at me, he goes, that's easy. I find the good in them. Like, okay. So right now, is anybody trying to find a good in anything? You know, we have to watch being masters of discouragement right now. And the way you encourage yourself and the way Gary encourages people and the way you encourage other people is you find the good in yourself and you bring that over to where you need it. Okay. So I've been through this before. I've survived that. What did I have to do? Okay, bring this over to where you need it. When I quit litigation, I started an environmental nonprofit organization, was highly non-profitable, right? Here I am, 40 years old, bankrupt, feeling stupid, right? And that's when I got my first coach. And she was a master of encouragement too. She goes, Don, how'd you become such a good trial lawyer? I said, well, 3 years of education, 3 years of practice. Then I became really good. And she goes, that's exactly what will happen with you with finances. You'll get 3 years of education and 3 years of practice. And you'll be really good at finances too. And that's exactly what happened. That's what a master of encouragement does, brings hope to other people by finding the good in them and bringing it over to where they need it. And that's not just an external conversation, it's an internal conversation as well. So it's very easy to feel useless right now. Tyler and I were kidding about it earlier on, but I go to the restaurant and I see a busboy or somebody making tacos. They're considered essential and I'm not, which is kind of crazy, right? Like, wow, how did that happen after all this education and effort? All right, so how do we get through this? So I got through 2008, 2009. What did I have to do then? Okay, bring some of that over here. It'll be interesting, but find the good in yourself, find the good in the others, and bring it over to where they need it and be a master of encouragement. And the last word here is to inspire people, and leaders, CEOs, parents, coaches, meeting planners. We inspire people with a future story brought present. We inspire people through stories. We inspire people through stories throughout the millennia. You know, as they say, facts tell and stories sell, right? So stories about our future brought present. So I remember after we went bankrupt, after I went bankrupt, had to sell my house, had to move in a place downtown, completely embarrassed, feeling stupid, trying to save the world and losing my own self in the process. And I saw some kids playing basketball. One had an NBA jersey on. And I realized in that moment that that kid in his mind is an NBA player in the making. See, I was so worried that when I finally do have money, when I finally do get to speak again, when we finally do have more meetings, then I'll feel good about myself. And I realized that that's so disempowering. This kid's more empowered than I am. And so I had to tell myself in that moment that moving forward, I will hold myself as a millionaire in the making at a point when I was flat broke. Because I had to have the beingness precede the doingness. It's who I had to be. So you folks are kick-ass meeting planners whose business is better than ever in the making right now. Isn't that how you want to hold yourself? Isn't that the most powerful way and most powerful story you can give yourself? And to give yourself an even more story, I kind of leaked it already. I went looking for what can I latch onto? What can I hold onto throughout all of this? And I've been a voracious reader, and what came to me was the book Anti-Fragile. Okay, so let's do that. It's interesting. The pointer just stopped. This thing froze. This is where you like Gumby. Okay. There we go. There it goes. That's what happens when you talk too much on one slide, right? So Anti-Fragile, Nassim Taleb wrote this book, I think it was 2013, 2017, something like that. And before that, he wrote the book Black Swan, which nobody paid attention to. He talked about black swan events. 9/11 was a black swan event. It was completely unexpected. We had no reason to think that could possibly happen. Interestingly, he said this coronavirus thing is a white swan event. We knew about. It's not like we didn't know about these things. You know, it's just that it had what economists call a fat tail. Nobody expected to get this bad, right? And he made a whole killing in 2008, 2009, and then everybody paid attention backwards to his book, Black Swan, and then he wrote the book, Anti-Fragile. And I love the metaphor. So right now, there are many people fragile. Many people fragile. They're paycheck to paycheck. Some of this unemployment might stop. We're trying to prevent people from going out on the street. You're seeing an emotional fragility and all the abuse going on in homes. There's a lot of fragility right now, and government safety nets are the only thing that can catch that. Okay? Then you have people who you hear a lot of conversation today around resilience and resistance, and that's good. If you've been able to save 6 months savings, if you're able to pivot to another type of work that you used to do right away, then you can survive this. I'm at least resistant at the minimum. If my savings will go down, I might have to work an extra year, something like that, but I'm going to have a roof over my head, food over my mouth. I'm just going to have to play catch up like a lot of people did in 2008, 2009, right? So it's good to be resilient or resistance and, you know, save for a rainy day. The third thing, though, is what we really want to be is anti-fragile. I love the metaphor. Evolution is anti-fragile. Nature gets hit with chaos, and it grows as a result. So he says things that gain from disorder. We want to gain from this disorder. We want to be anti-fragile in the making. I cannot think of a more powerful way to hold myself, or for you folks to hold yourself, is, yeah, I'm taking a punch, but man, I'm going to come out of this stronger. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to come out of this stronger. The boxer who gets beat up, realizing, you know what, I just realized the fault in my action. I'm going to come out of this stronger anytime. I'm going to make myself anti-fragile. When this stuff comes my way, I'm going to grow from it. Okay? isn't that the story you want to share? Some of my clients all around the country have posters, anti-fragile, all over their workplace. So coax, encourage, and inspire. Those are the three most powerful leadership words, whether you're leading yourself, leading your family, leading somebody else. If that's not the essence of leadership, then I haven't figured it out still. Now, moving off our 80%. Some of us right now can't go 80%. We can't do this. We can't go. It's just not available to us, right? But some of us are still trying to control our way out of this. Still trying to be an 80%er and think that's going to be our salvation. As long as I work really hard, at least I won't have the guilt of not working really, really hard. In the book Death in Venice, Thomas Mann talked about the protagonist, said he always lived his life like this. He never lived it like this. Do you want to be around this? Do you want to be you like this? So the first step in moving off 80 to 40 is to let go. Let go, let go, let go. I mean, I can find things wrong right now. We have our spidey senses looking to where we need to protect ourselves and something's not right. Hey, that's out of order in the house. There's something wrong with that. Whatever it is, all right? My teenager didn't respect me today. Whatever it is, all right? So letting go is so important. Showing up like this. Now, there's plenty of ways of letting go, whether it's meditation, whether it's giving yourself good self-talk, giving yourself, I do little index cards in the morning to remind myself, to set myself so I don't come in tight like that. The mantra for the 80%er is inclusion. So how can I be inclusive of my clients' needs that are being challenged right now? How can I be inclusive of them? How can I show them that I care about them? And the number one way to show anybody that you care about them is to listen to them. Now, this is a scary journey, moving from 80 down to 40, letting things go. And you have to have faith that it's the most powerful spot to be in as 40%. As an 80%er, I had to run to get everything. There was no room for the law of attraction things to come to me. What would an 80%er attract? 20%ers who want you to save them, or 80%ers who want to compete with you. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm really not into that game. I'd rather co-create with people and attract those people. So as you move from 80 down to 40, there's an abundance that shows up. Different opportunities show up because of who you've become. Right? So, and you have to have faith in that. As Lou Reed saying, it takes a busload of faith to get on by. All right. And you just get there one safe step at a time, even off our 80%. Now, the power of listening is just so important. It's the number one way to show anybody that you care about them is to listen to them. I get paid well as a coach because I'm willing to listen to people better than anybody else. That's why I get paid. You know, they don't want to talk about their work problems with their spouse too much, or their friends too much, or somebody else at work that's too vulnerable to do it there. So I'll pay somebody to talk about it because those conversations help you move on, right? So if you can just be somebody who listens to somebody without trying to correct or fix or judge or any of that stuff for 5 minutes, that's the number one way you can show somebody that you care about them, just being present with them for at least 5 minutes. Because you know what happens is if you don't listen to people, as it says here, you'll be surrounded with people who have nothing to say, and that includes not just at work, but at home as well. So, before we get into some questions, I want to share with you one of my more favorite props. You know, we can be so tight right now in our fear. So we don't want to play victim anymore, then we go to the strong on the other side. We flip-flop to the other side. And we can take ourselves so seriously, but the reality is taking yourself seriously right now is not what's going to make the difference. It's not going to make the difference. You have to just do things. You don't have to add the serious idea on top of doing things. And so there's a very powerful tool to prevent ourselves from taking ourselves too seriously. It's the red nose, all right? So if it was my company or my house, I'd go to Amazon like I've done, and I buy so many red noses. I send them out to my clients who have people going to work. I've sent them, I've done workshops, and I've sent bags of things, of tuning forks and noses to people who, to join on the Zoom meeting, on a Zoom meeting all wearing a red nose. These are so cheap on Amazon. Go do yourself a favor and get a bunch of red noses for your friends and families, and they'll love you for it many times. You can be your own Patch Adams. How's that, right? You cannot take yourself seriously. You can't take coronavirus serious. You can't take politics serious if you got a red nose on, okay? So with all of that, remember 3 things as the lens: responsibility, grace, and creativity, playing 40-40, coax, encourage, and inspire, let go, be inclusive, and have faith. Okay? Those are powerful frameworks. Now on my website, there's a couple of things that will help you right now. This is Creativity A to Z book, work ideas. This is all free. You just go there and you don't have to put your information in. There's the Bath and Book of Time, which is an interesting deep dive I did for 3 years in time. And since we have time right now, it's really interesting thought process about time. And then Stop Making Mistakes. Right now, we want to check our head, and this is my risk management background book. There's a checklist on the back of that I wish I had when I was younger on what to, so just kind of to check your head that you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing right now. This is a great book for that. And the Visionary is a little workbook from the old and true ideas of how we can look at things. So those are a couple of resources there. And then if you send me an email, I will send you a copy of the 40-40 book. It's also up on Amazon, but you can save yourself $25 and send me an email, right? And here's the contact information to go do that. So I'll leave that there for a minute. And then we'll see what questions we have.
Oh, thank you, Don.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Oh, you did a great job. Appreciate it. I was really looking forward to this. And yeah, and one question, maybe just a basic one I had, and I know we've discussed the content here, a lot before we did the program. And you've done sessions and presentations to lots of CEOs in your career and what you do. How is their situation similar to just your average person now who is maybe stressed or looking for work or afraid they're going to lose their job?
They're human beings.
Yeah.
And we deal with this at a human level. This is makes no difference if you're an Einstein or if you're a housekeeper. Now the housekeeper may not be able to pick up on this languaging as quickly, but there's none of you that can't pick up. There's nothing here that's rocket science. There's zero rocket science today. There should be some aha today for everybody, but no rocket science. We already, in my belief system, we already know this stuff inherently, implicitly. I'm just giving good languaging to it.
Excellent. And then I would encourage anyone, if you have any questions, go ahead, send them in either in the Q&A or the chat area. And then we do have one here, and this is probably a lot of people out there are feeling this way. This person says, I feel stuck. I don't know what I can do right now to make money. What do you do?
Okay. It is definitely a challenge. What you can do is, first of all, throw yourself the pity party and get that over with. All right, okay, I did that. Now I feel sorry for myself. Get that over with, because staying in that place is not going to help you. You've got to take action one safe step at a time. So number one, you can look at and start Googling what other people have done to pivot. You can look at things like side hustles that you can do for a while. You can go back to doing work. So for example, there's still a demand for legal work. And so I've gone back and I've done some of that stuff, even though I don't really want to do it anymore. But right now I do what I have to do. So the first thing to realize is nothing is beneath us right now. And the mantra, I think that would be helpful. I'll do what I have to do until I don't have to do it anymore. So if that means you have to drive an Uber, then you drive an Uber, all right? As long as you don't put yourself in an unsafe or unhealthy situation, then you just do what you have to do, and you can get that's beneath me, some of that stuff out of the way, first of all. Secondly, it's hard to be creative by yourself. So brainstorming with other people in a similar situation. So for example, one of my clients, there's a sales organization, and everybody's afraid to contact anybody right now to sell them anything, etc. And they're all on commission basis. They're all losing money collectively. And we said, let's stop that. Let's do some brainstorming sessions and get some ideas in a way. And they came up with some really cool ideas of how to service other people, get out of their own stuff and start focusing on how you can service somebody else. So my mantra going through all of this, if I'm going to be anti-fragile, I'm going to learn new ways to service other people. And you simply ask yourself, how can I best be of service right now?
Excellent. Yeah, great. And we had one comment come in that says the U.S. Census is hiring right now. We used to have a story out today, ironically enough, a former meeting planner who's retired now, but she's picked up a bunch of work for the Census Bureau. So
like
one
again,
thing.
Do what you have to do until you don't have to do it anymore. You can put your pride aside a little bit, humble yourself, be a 40%er, and just do what needs to be done. You don't have to be add a story on top of it that this is demeaning or this is ridiculous. Just do what you have to do. And
I would also mention too, those who are interested in their CMP certificate for today's program, it's on our webinar club page at meetingstoday.com/webinar club wellness. Just have time for a couple more questions. Here's the $1 million question. You'll be a millionaire or a billionaire if you can answer this, Don.
In the making, billionaire in the making.
There you go. When do you think we'll be back to normal?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, yeah. I even have a genie hat someplace. So let me see here. Okay. When will we be back to normal? Look, my belief system is normal is an interesting word. I don't know if we'll be back. What's normal, right?
Yeah.
But what's next? I think that the majority of fear is based on a senior population, a very vulnerable population, unhealthy population. That's where the vast majority of the exposure is. And until those people have a vaccine that they can take to allay that fear, that would say, now I can go to the supermarket, I think we'll be stuck until we have a vaccine and people can now make a choice to protect themselves who are otherwise very concerned about even going out to public.
Great. And time for just one more question. What are you excited about right now, Don?
Well, I as I shared, I made an investment to be able to present like this instead of being on a little Logitech screen. I'm going back to some of the online trainings I've created, one about how to be a great employee. I put something out there, I got a lot of feedback. Now I've got the time to put that back out. I think it'd be a very interesting program. And I'm excited about some of these meeting planners saying, let's do some workshops, Don. That's what I'm excited about.
Excellent. And well, how would they, if they wanted to inquire about it? I guess you beat me to it. They're right there. Your investment in the screen is already paying off, Don. You can write it off.
I think it's kind of fun. It's you know, again, the technology. Nobody's hired me for my technological skills, but I will figure stuff out and do what I have. Watch as many YouTube videos as I have to until I figure something out.
Hey, we do all sorts of webinars now, Zoom stuff. This is the coolest one we've done as far as just the presentation. So I appreciate that.
It's working. It's working.
All right. Thanks, Don. We got to cut off the presentations today, so really appreciate it. Thank you.
And one last thing. I know that this is highly emotional stuff we talk about, and people don't like to ask questions in public. Don't hesitate to send me a private email.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Don. And thank you all for tuning in. We're almost out of time today, but we just wanted to remind people of a few housekeeping items before we go. Be sure to check out our next webinar, which will be on August 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Key contract clauses, a meeting planner's guide to cost containment and risk reduction, presented by Robin Mikowitz. She is a tried and true expert on cost containment, budgeting, negotiations, and I'm sure all the information will be very timely also. So you don't want to miss that one, trust me. And then also remember, you can find this webinar today is on demand on our website as well as our past webinars. So head on over to meetingstoday.com and you can check those out now. Thanks again to Dawn for joining, and thanks again to you for joining us for this webinar today. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again soon.